Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Success School podcast. I just want to say thank you so much for being here and taking time to listen to the show today. And I also just want to make sure you are aware that my whole mission with this podcast is to be able to give people access to conversations that are going to enlighten, they're going to inspire, and they're going to give you the information needed to genuinely start to live a happier, a healthier, and a more fulfilling life. But here's the thing, I am just one man. So that's really, really hard to get a lot of people to be positively impacted when I'm doing this alone. So I'm just going to ask a little favor. And I know you're probably sick of hearing this. You probably hear it on every podcast you listen to. But please, if you genuinely do think this podcast is valuable and can help people, if you could just take a second to hit that subscribe button, and maybe go one further, tell other people about it, share it on your Insta stories, anything you can do to help bring more awareness to the show would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for being here, and I really hope you enjoy this episode. Gavin Oattes, welcome to the Success School podcast. It's really good to have you here, mate. For those that are not familiar with Gavin, pretty multi-talented fella. This is a guy who's a motivational speaker. He's also a business owner. He's also a successful author and a stand-up comedian. First and foremost, welcome, Gavin. How are you this evening? How's things?
Do you know, I'm very well. It's been a very cold day up here in Scotland, and it's
you
nice
say
to
that
be...
like it's sometimes warm in Scotland,
Hey,
isn't it? Always cold.
We have had the most fantastic heat wave over the last few months at certain times, believe it or not. So It's been a freezing cold day. You could see your breath in Edinburgh here today. So it is my pleasure to be at home, warm, cozy, with you and a wonderful group of people. So yeah, everything's great.
Amazing.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolute pleasure, Gavin. I think let's dive straight in, because I've just said there, there's some things on the surface, on the outside looking in, that sounds like, wow, Gav's got his shit together. This is a super successful guy. But I want us to speak about the subject of anxiety. I know that you've spoke openly about having an anxiety disorder, and I wondered if we could, speak about your experiences with that, but also, I think really importantly, the difference between an anxiety disorder and someone who just gets anxious from time to time. What would you say is kind of your take on that?
So I think, so this goes way back to when I was a kid. When I was like 5-6 years of age, I was always known as a worrier, because that's what we called it back in those days. Nobody talked in the 80s and 90s about things like anxiety or mental health. You were just a worrier, Gavin. Stop worrying about things. Put things in perspective, which is not useful or helpful in any way whatsoever. Going through secondary school, people asking you when you're 12, what do you want to be? And I'm like, I'm just trying to get rid of my moobs. I don't know. Stop asking me big, serious questions. When I was about 11 or 12, I started to get to a point where I realized I was struggling with sleep. I was feeling extremely restless, I couldn't sit still. In school, I was told I was daydreaming. I was all these kind of, I was just trying to not feel worried, trying to not feel scared. But as life has gone on, I've found all sorts of interesting ways to deal with it and cope with it. But as I was explaining to you before we went live, in the last 6 years, now I'm 44 now, in the last 6 years, I've had 3 enormous flare-ups of anxiety. Now, when I say flare-ups, that I don't know if that's a technical term, that's what I refer to as, and we're talking 3, 4, 5 months at a time of absolute hardcore anxiety, physical anxiety. I can't sleep, it hurts, I'm restless, I can't sit still, I can't do anything. And of course, my job, I speak for a living and I write books, and going on stage, getting to that point of getting up there when you're feeling that anxious is really hard. Once I'm up there, weirdly, it lifts. And of course, that's the immediacy of being in front of a live audience. You're not able to think about anything else.
You have to be present, right? And I guess as well, you're in flow. This is what you do.
This is it.
Right, okay.
That's my happy place. But we're starting to, 44 years of age and finally deciding to do something about this. And I, for the first time ever, decided to go and speak to some specialists this year. I now see a grief therapist, because we're starting to realise this all links back to losing my dad 12 years ago, which I thought I'd dealt with like a pro, everyone, because I'm the guy that talks about being positive and writes books about it. So surely I'll deal with it really well. Turns out it got me. So to go back to your question, though, about the difference between anxiety and having an anxiety disorder, it's a tough one for me to explain, because we live in a time where an awful lot of people say, yeah, I'm anxious too. Yeah, I've got anxiety. But having anxiety, being anxious, and having a disorder are completely different things. You know, if you, like I say, it's a hard one to explain because for me, it's in me. Does that make sense? Like it's ingrained. It's in my brain. It's in my body. It's almost like I have no control over it. So there are little things.
Do you think then some people that have maybe not got a disorder in the way that you have, the reason they lean into it is A, because it's something they hear a lot of other people saying, but B, because it's almost by giving themselves that label, it almost makes them feel better. Oh, it's not my fault. You know, they hear what you're saying there. Well, you can't do anything about it because it's something you've got. Do you think that people just lean into that?
The label thing's an interesting thing because one of the things that there's been a running sort of joke in our house. So my wife's a head teacher of a big secondary school here in Edinburgh, and we met when we were 18. And forever she said, "You're totally ADHD," and they used to talk about that when I was a kid. But it was almost it was in jest. But of course, adult ADHD manifests itself very commonly as anxiety. So I have recently been screened for adult ADHD. Now, I've not undergone the assessment, so I need to be clear on that. But I tick all the boxes. But the question is, why would you have the assessment to find out something you probably already know? And I'm saying, well, at least I would know.
Yeah.
And as you said, it gives you a thing where you can turn around to yourself and say, well, I feel like this because I am this. So you can kind of hang your hat on that a little bit. But my sort of thinking is, I don't think I need to know. I think I know who I am. I know how I feel. I've always been like this. You know, one of the things I was asked to do was find all my old school reports from primary school. And is there any recurring themes? So we found them. My mum still has them, and I sat and read them recently with my own kids. Turns out, as a kid, I couldn't sit still. I kept daydreaming. I was unable to focus. I was unable to concentrate. I was always excited. I was always nervous. I was always worrying about things. And it just goes tick, 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 tick. So there is a strange thing there about this idea of people, they give themselves a label. Even if I am professionally, medically given a label, it can be of use. But at the same time, there's part of me thinking, I don't know if it's going to help anything. The only thing that might help there is at that point, they can offer you medication. But I don't know if I want to go down that route.
You said, was it around 11, 12, you say, that you can remember sort of feeling it?
Well, I can actually remember it from the age of about 5. But the first time it really exploded was I was about 11 or 12, and might sound a bit strange. I wrote about this in one of the books. It was the year of the Pan Am air disaster over Lockerbie, right? So I grew up. Now I saw the message coming in there from somebody who lives in Dumfries, so they're even closer to where this happened than I was. I grew up in a little town called Troon in the southwest of Scotland, not quite as southwest as Dumfries, but in the southwest. So where that plane exploded and landed was not far from my house. I already had a slight fear of flying. That year we were due to fly to America to see family of mine out there. So 11 years of age, I saw all those images on the news for the first time. Now, we're used to seeing those images now because of social media and the way the news coverage works. But back in, what was it, 1990, maybe? 90, I can't remember the exact year. I had never seen anything like that before. That graphic, that clear on my TV screen before. And pardon the expression, but I shat it. I absolutely shat it because I saw houses on the telly that looked like mine with a plane on top of them, and kept hearing about all these deaths and these people from another country. Oh, there's Kelly saying she remembers the night and the colour of the sky. It was so close to where we grew up. I had never seen anything or felt anything like it. And then I started saying, well, I think that's going to happen to me when I go to America. And my mum and dad are like, oh, don't be so silly. You're just worrying. But it was so real to me.
And you were so young as well. That's the thing. Interesting question then to pose to you. What do you think, based on the fact you can remember a specific event that maybe perhaps was a catalyst, a trigger, do you think anxiety disorder is something within, or is it something that is created through what we experience and our perception of it?
So this is where it starts to get interesting. So a lot of the stuff I've been looking into recently, as I mentioned, revolves around my dad. Now, it was 12 years ago I lost my dad. And what I learned, I don't know if anybody else on here has lost a parent, but it was about 2 or 3 years after losing dad that I started to learn stuff about my dad that I didn't know. Because you just end up having really random conversations that for some reason you never had when they're around. And something that I discovered was that in his early 40s, my dad had several years where he had a real struggle with anxiety. I didn't know this. My brother is in his 40s, he's older than me, and has had a few years where he has really struggled with anxiety. Now, the trigger of that anxiety, I think, is different. Now, there is stuff out there, and there is research, and there is evidence about it can be in your genes, basically. Yeah. Without being a medical expert, I am starting to believe that it's in my genes.
Yeah.
Because of the conversations I've now had with other relatives about my dad, my mum. So I am starting to think that it is somehow, for me, genetic. I don't know if it is, though, but I think it might be.
What, for anyone listening that resonates, for you personally, what are some of the solutions? And also for people just generally that find they feel like anxious from time to time, whether that be a disorder or not. Have you got any go-to bits of advice that you swear by for you that help you manage that as best as possible?
There are so many things that I have tried over the years. You know, my go-to for a while, it was like, I have to do mindfulness. I have to do mindfulness. You know, every day you got to do mindfulness. And it can help. Don't get me wrong. It can absolutely help. I still use the Calm app, but that's for sleep stories. I don't know if you've ever had a shot of the sleep stories before, but there's a guy on there called Eric Bra, BRAA, and he's just a big, beautiful Viking. I don't know if he's a Viking in my mind, though. He's a big, beautiful Viking. He's got a cracking beard and the best voice you've ever heard in your life. And he does these sleep stories that last maybe 30, 40 minutes. I don't think I'll get past 7 minutes with this guy. His voice is so beautiful. And that, you know, for me, sleep is a big issue when I'm really struggling with anxiety. I sleep for like 90 minutes a night. Now, that doesn't end well. I mean, I remember in 2018, my body broke out in hives. What was interesting, though, is they stopped here and here, so I could chuck on shirts and jackets and jumpers, turn up, get up in front of my big audience that day, in front of thousands of people sometimes, and perform my way through it, and then go sit in my car and freak myself out because my body was doing weird things. Basically, I wasn't listening to my brain. My body started to kick and go, well, we're going to try and stop you. I'm going to try, there's more than me. I'm going to try and send you some messages, but I just wasn't in the right state of mind. I wasn't paying attention. And then, of course, my brain broke at 4 o'clock in the morning in a hot tub in Aviemore in the Highlands of Scotland. And just for the sake of your readers, your listeners, I don't live in Aviemore or have a hot tub. So that's a story for another day. But there's some brilliant techniques that I have found. There's this, I read The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. I once said Rolf Harris. That's a dodgy book. That's not a name you should. That's not a name you should say by mistake.
Getting life advice from Rolf Harris, probably a bad shout.
Yeah. I said that in a live interview once and didn't even realize I'd said it, and I could see people's faces looking at me as if to go, "Who?" Russ Harris. And there was a brilliant technique in there that I actually then shared in one of my books because I really believe it changed my life. And he refers to it as I'm having the thought that. So I'll explain it in case there's anybody here who's struggling. Well, we know there's at least one struggling with anxiety. So basically, I used to lie in my bed back in 2018, and all I could think of was I'm never going to sleep again. But what he says is instead of just constantly thinking I'm never going to sleep again, you should tell yourself I'm having the thought that I'm never going to sleep again.
So you almost detach from owning it.
This is it.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so Jamie's saying, what was the name of the book? The Happiness Trap. He has another one called The Happiness Slap, I think, but go for trap. Sorry, the other one is The Reality Slap, but it's The Happiness Trap. So you run, so to begin with, you're running, I'm never going to sleep again. Then I started running, I'm having the thought that I'm never going to sleep again. And then you run it again, I appear to be having the thought that I'm never going to sleep again. And each one just moves yourself away from it. And it was my wife that bought me the book. I've read almost every self-help book going, because obviously I write them as well, and I was struggling to find something new that was actually, I'd refer to it as, feel that sense of lifting, because it's so physical for me. It's so heavy, and my head gets heavy, my eyes get heavy, and I started trying this. I'm having the thought that process, and I kid you not, almost instantly, I just felt a little lift, and I was like, oh my God. There was a lot of stuff in the book didn't work, but that one little gem, unfortunately, and I don't want to disappoint anyone, this year, because, when Matt got in touch with me a few months ago to ask me if I would do this, I said, look, you're going to have to come back to me in a few weeks because I've burst my brain again. I've had another massive 4 month, I'm past it and through it now, but another 4 months of real hardcore anxiety this year. And it didn't work for me this year. That was my go-to technique. And for the first time ever, it didn't work. But the thing this year, another thing, by the way, it's amazing, is running. I don't know if any of you are runners. I'm not a natural runner, but running, and for the first time ever, as I've mentioned, I'm now going to see a therapist, which is something that I resisted in the past. But for the first time ever, I thought I'm going to go and sit with a professional. I've been very lucky. The first person I went to see, I've just clicked with, because I know a lot of people that have gone 3, 4, 5 people before they. So first go for me. This woman is amazing, and there is stuff coming out that I didn't know I needed to deal with.
I think like one of the biggest messages to take away from that for everybody is it's a combination of trying different stuff, right? It's not a case of going, oh, I'm struggling with this. I've tried this, this, and this. Therefore, I'm broken. It doesn't work. It's no, can we try something else? You've said the therapy is a relatively new thing. Running, reading all these different books. One thing out of that book worked for a bit, but now it's not working. And it's not as effective. We find something else. But the key is to just never stop trying, right? Never stop not looking into it. Yeah.
Two big things as well for me: talking about it and having no shame or embarrassment about it, and writing about it. There is actual science at play, of course, that if you physically write, not type, but physically get yourself a pen or pencil, write it all down, how you're feeling, it is like you're getting it out of your system. And I'm going to mention one other thing, which I've not actually told anybody other than my business partners and my immediate family. And that is, I, for the first time, have started taking meds this year. Never done that before. All sorts of reasons not to, all sorts of reasons to take them. You said something there, Matt, about it's a combination of things. I have a neighbour who's a doctor, and he refers to it as a package. It's about creating the right package for you. And I cannot tell you the difference that those meds have made for me. The first 5 weeks were horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. It made it worse, but I was told that would happen. I was told it would happen for 1 week, 5 weeks. And I thought, what have I done? What a mistake. But running, reading, writing, therapy, meds, and lots of great music and ice lollies.
Love music and ice lollies. All right, let's talk about the career you've had as a stand-up comedian. I believe it started quite young, and you started sort of in the Edinburgh Fringe. Now, I know that when you hear on podcasts and books and so on, like some of people's biggest fears, like statistically, one of the biggest fears of a lot of people is standing up and public speaking. Then take that further, and you've actually got to be funny. Otherwise, people are going to boo you off stage and say you're shit. Like, stand-up comedy for most people sounds like the scariest, most horrific thing to choose. And you come on this podcast like, yeah, I've had an anxiety disorder and decided that's a smart move. Talk to me about that. Why would you do something like that to yourself?
Oh, I just love it. As a kid, I never performed ever. Like, I was never in the school show. I didn't pick drama. I wasn't musical. I loved music and I loved drama, but I was never the kid that did any of that stuff. Enormous fear of being on stage, the thought of being laughed at. I also used to go very red as a kid. I don't know if anyone else on here ever. We used to call it taking a beamer where I was from, and I was the kid every so Oates's taking a beamer, and they would do this with their finger on their face, and it just made it worse, and it was absolutely horrendous. So the thought of being up in front of an audience was my worst nightmare. But through the 90s as a teenager, when everybody was desperately trying to be the next Oasis and learn guitar, as much as I love my music, I became obsessed with Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer. They were a double act at the time. I then discovered a thing called The Fast Show. My parents introduced me to Monty Python. I then got into a show called Bottom with Rick Mail and Adrian Edmondson. And I became utterly obsessed with really physical character comedy. People putting on silly costumes, beards, dresses, wigs, putting on a crazy voice, coming up with a character, turning it into the most ridiculous sketch. And I became so obsessed that I was not the kid in the 90s sitting trying to write songs. I was the kid that was sitting writing comedy sketches. Now, in the 90s, that wasn't cool, so I didn't tell anybody. And then when I got to about 17 years of age, I decided with a friend of mine that we were going to enter an open mic competition in Aberdeen, of all places. And we worked really hard on a 5-minute sketch. I mean, it was the most bonkers thing we came up. I mean, it's now looking back, I think it's absolutely insane. But I couldn't eat or sleep for about 3 days before it. I was almost physically sick before it, and everybody's like, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" I was like, "Because I want to be Vic and Bob. That's it. I just want to be Vic and Bob." And we went on stage that night and we smashed it, and it was the greatest 5 minutes of my life at that point. And for that 5 minutes, I had never felt so alive. I was buzzing. I was happy. I was so fulfilled and so content and so present. And I think it's hard these days to feel that at any time because the world's on edge. I mean, just look at the news. It's bonkers. We're all on edge.
Social media, constantly comparing yourself. I mean,
sort of
just hearing what you've said there, it sounds like a combination of having a big enough reason why combined with a passion and an excitement about it is what maybe saw you through. The reason why is because you've seen these people, you've loved what it brought to your life, and you're like, I want to be able to do that for others. But now, based on years and years of experience, public speaking and comedy and all the amazing things that you've done, if you was to give advice as practical as possible, because there's a lot of people on this call right now who, you know, they may be in the early stages of building a business and they understand about getting themselves out there, talking on camera, personal branding, some of these kind of topics that require them to either get on stage, be a speaker, or go on camera. Have you got any kind of tips for building confidence, basically doing stuff you're shit scared to do, but you know in doing it, it's going to move you forward and it's going to progress you?
Yeah, I think the best advice ever is you just have to put yourself in it and keep doing it. You know, you don't walk on stage and use the comedy as an example. So to be clear to everyone listening, on the second gig we did get booed off. So the first gig, oh shit, it was an absolute nightmare, and I cried at home that night, and I thought, well, I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I went from this huge high to this almighty low. The only positive was that there was two of us doing a double act, so at least I could talk about it with somebody. Imagine you were on your own, but even worse. But I think there's a little bit more. So if I can just, at the same time, I went to uni to train as a primary school teacher. So again, you're putting yourself in front of an audience every day. Now, it's a very different audience. You're getting up in front of 30 children aged between, 3 and 12.
Some might say a tougher audience then, even harder.
Well, it is. No, it is. It's a much more structured day, but at the same time, they're both the same thing. And this is part of my answer to the question. I realised that whether I was doing stand up or whether I was in the classroom doing primary teaching, at this point I'm 18, being a student, so I was still really young, and I discovered that during the day my job was to capture people through telling really funny stories, teach them some cool stuff, make them feel great, and make sure that as they walk out, they're buzzing and they want to come back the next day and hear from me again. And then at night, I'm in the clubs with the adults, and my job is to hook them in, capture them, tell them some great stories, give them a lift, make sure they walk out buzzing thinking, I want to hear more from this guy. And I think I very quickly realised that you can use this stuff for good. For education, for inspiring people, for giving people a sense of escape, a time out of the busyness of life. And I clicked with this really, really early. And I think that purpose, that why, that desire to help other people, that's why I went into teaching at the end of the day. I realised that whilst I am shit scared and I'm not an expert at either teaching or stand-up, they're the same thing. And there's going to be an opportunity here to bring these two things together at some point in my life, which is what I do now, of course. But the only way to be the best at that is I have to keep going out there and I have to keep doing it, and I have to keep asking for feedback and great criticism from people, and I have to accept that I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I have to accept my nervousness and my anxiety, and I need to just put that out there as something really, really positive. So my answer to the question is you have to just keep doing it. It's that old feel the fear anyway and do it. You kind of do. I mean, you can watch videos, you can go on courses. I'm sorry, most people that run public speaking courses have never actually had a career in public speaking. They've learned they've learned what they've learned out of books.
Do you know what I'm hearing, Gavin? Correct me if I'm wrong, but to give some kind of additional tangible advice, I guess, for people is the thing that helped you is you didn't make it about you. You made it about the audience. You made it about serving. You made it about, I can use this for good. I can give the audience entertainment, escapism. I can educate. I can inspire. And I think when you shift the purpose from being, I hope they like me, I hope they find me funny, and me, when you shift it to, I'm here to serve and I want to give, then it's a slightly different way of looking at it, I think. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much out there around having that sense of purpose in the world. When people say to me, tell me about your business, I say, well, we want to inspire the world. And they go, good one. What does that mean? I'm like, well, let me tell you. And I can tell you what that means to me and to my team. And, I've got a business called Tree of Knowledge, and I've got several employees, and we travel the world. We work in schools, we work in colleges, unis, businesses. There's me off doing my thing. And everybody will tell you why we're there, and we're all there. We found each other. It's amazing when you are somebody who is out there to truly make a difference. You find your people. See, if you're an arsehole out there telling everybody that you're a shark and a lion and you're an absolute hustle master and you're going to be a billionaire, you'll also find your people.
Yeah,
but they're not my people.
Well, let's talk about that. But I mean, I just want to really highlight that, guys. For anybody that struggles with nerves when it be public speaking or putting yourself out there, a lot of you were at the event that we've just done recently in Manchester, and I've had quite a few people going, oh my God, you were just so at peace, you were so at ease. And when I reflected on that, I wasn't there wondering what people thought of me. I was there going, I really want you to take something from today. I made it about my audience. I made it about you guys. Not about, do I look cool? Do I look funny? What are people thinking of me? So on and so forth. So I think that's a really important one. But just you touched there about this hustle thing. Let's talk about, I've heard you speak about, you said people need to give up the strive for perfection. This whole thing of, I need to be the best I can be. Talk to us about that. Why should people stop trying to be the best ever and be better than everybody else and striving for perfection? And maybe just tell us a little bit about your opinion on some of the things you've seen in personal development as an industry.
Well, everybody's trying to make it. And that's something I talk about and write about a lot. This idea of making it. What the fuck does that mean? What does making it mean? Like, I mean, I remember being at school and people going, when I got to about 17, they're like, you do comedy? And I was like, yes. And they're like, why? I was like, well, I'm going to make it. I don't even know what that meant. Kids nowadays with social media, they just want to make it. Apparently at the push of a button on your phone, you can be a millionaire. Unfortunately, it turns out you can. But the chances are so small. But everybody, you mentioned it earlier, everybody's comparing. Everybody wants what's next. Life is basically just a big, giant sticker album. I don't know if anybody remembers collecting stickers. And it was all about completing it, being the first to complete it. And I don't know if you remember the phrase that went in line with collecting stickers, got, need. And everybody just needed the collectible shiny ones, the fancy ones. And life is has become this giant big sticker album of needs, and we've got to move on to the next level and fill things up before anyone else. But actually what's more important is contentment and fulfillment. I've got 2 kids, and I will never, ever forget the day we went abroad for the first time with our kids. One was 4, one was 7, and we went all-inclusive for the first time ever. And I said to the kids, go and help yourself to an ice lolly. And they couldn't believe you were allowed to help yourself to an ice lolly. They went over, they got their ice lollies, they came back to their sun lounger. And for 3 minutes, I've never seen 2 little beings be so content, so at peace, so fulfilled, because of a fucking ice lolly. Like, adults have forgotten. Adults are not. We've all forgotten what's important in life. We're all like, we've got to go bigger. We've got to go have more money and have a big house. See when you die, Matt, right? And we will all die, right? See when we die and people are at your funeral. Nobody will talk about how much money you had. Nobody will talk about the size of your house or how shiny your car is. They will talk about whether you were one of the good guys or an arsehole. That is it. And so when I work with young people and my team from work are in schools, we talk about contentment. We talk about fulfillment and finding that sweet spot in life, you know. And it's not, you know, people talk about things like FOMO, that fear of missing out. Maybe I talk about Nemo. It's not entirely missing out, you know. So you've got a wee foot in there with what's going on, but you know it's important. And then if we're talking about Nemo, we might as well talk about Dory. So there's not entirely missing out, and then so we talk about finding Nemo. So you're finding the right sweet spot there, but there's also finding Dory, which is the discovery discovery of basically of the real you, I guess. But it's there's so much pressure now. There is so much pressure, and we all know that what we see online is not real, and yet it still pushes buttons. It still pushes buttons, and it still makes people think, "Oh, I've got to make it. I've got to make it. I've got to go bigger, better." You don't. You need to find contentment and fulfillment, but that's hard.
If somebody's listening now and they're on that train of constantly needing more, needing bigger, and they've fallen into that trap and they hear this for the first time, and now they're hearing, no, it's about contentment and fulfillment. What would be your advice? How can they start to transition into finding more contentment and fulfillment?
So I refer to it as reverse goal setting. I mean, how many times in life have you been asked, where do you see yourself in 10 years? You know, it's one of the final questions you get asked at every job interview. 5 years from now, where do you see yourself? I've got absolutely no idea. I don't even know what I'm doing right now. And by the way, none of us do. Don't even pretend you do. We're all just making this shit up and winging it. It's a great skill. So when I talk about reverse goal setting, so instead of thinking, right, 1 year from now, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, where do I want to be? And then you do the whole thing where you break down your goals into bite-sized chunks. Woo! Yep. No. How do you want to feel right now? Like right now, how do you want to feel? And what can you do right now to help you feel like that? And then do that. So we're all so focused on the future. Our brains are just placed 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. How do you want to feel right now? Write it down. You know, you want to feel peaceful. You want to feel fit and healthy. Okay, so what could you do right now, right this second, that's going to help you get that? Well, I could go a walk for 20 minutes in some fresh air. Cool, go a walk. Go walk for 20 minutes in fresh air, and then do that tomorrow as well, and then do it the next day. You know, what if one of your goals is to run a marathon? Okay, well, what can you do right now, to help you do that? Well, go your walk around the block again, or whatever it might be. But I think
I love that because it brings people's thinking to more being in the present. And also, I think something a lot of the times that's one of the disadvantages of goal setting is they feel so far away. And when they're so far away, that then leads to people feeling demotivated and then feeling like a loser and a failure. So I think that's a really nice way to bring it back to the present and recognize you have everything within you right now in this moment to feel whatever you want to feel.
Of course you do. The you in 10 years is not going to be the same as the you now.
Right. What about the counter then? What if I'm looking at the advice you've given me and I'm kind of like, right, I want to feel happy. And then I'm like, there's some chocolate over there. There's some porn over there. And I can't be asked getting out of bed. I'm just going to stay in bed all day. That'll make me feel happy now. Like, how do we get the balance right between not just completely living in the moment and potentially doing things that are self-destructive and that we're going to regret in the future? What's your advice with that?
I mean, there's so many layers to that question, and so many layers to a possible answer. I think, well, firstly, you're allowed to enjoy yourself. Secondly, you're allowed to have shit days. You know, like I was talking to somebody about this recently, actually. If you want to lie in your bed and eat ice cream all day, awesome. I'm down for that. A day in bed, eating ice cream and watching Dumb and Dumber. That sounds like a bloody good day, if I'm being honest. Do I want to do it 2 days running? Maybe. But do I want to do it every day for the next 6 months? Maybe. No, I definitely don't, because I know that at the end of that 6 months we're going to have a problem. I quite often talk about people, you got to let those days in. Show them around, but make sure you show them the door. You know, I think I'm just looking at the message there. I got worms. I know every single line from that movie. Anyway, my mum banned me from watching that on VHS, believe it or not, in what, 1994 or whenever it was.
The scary thing is some people will listen to this and not know what a VHS is. Like, that is the scary thing. How fast things have moved. But yeah, those
absolutely. It was. So, but there's other parts to the answer on the question there that might involve things like alcohol, drugs. You mentioned porn, foods that are bad for you. That's a huge conversation to go into. So I'll stick with my answer of you're allowed to enjoy yourself. You're allowed to have shit days. I am not one of those motivational speakers. In fact, I'd even call myself a motivational speaker. I'm not one of those speakers who will say, oh, it's all about positivity and you've got to be positive all the time, and you know, you be positive and everything will be all right. I'm sorry, it's just not how it works.
Yeah, it's not practical.
I mean, it helps to be positive,
of course, but what it ends up doing 9 times out of 10 is making a perfectly normal human being feel there's something wrong with them for feeling negative or feeling down or struggling or wanting to eat chocolate. Yeah,
and no, you're absolutely right, and I think you know, I've got a good friend, Andy, who his name's Dr. Andy Cope. I don't know if you're familiar with Andy. He was he's the first doctor of happiness in the UK, and I've been very lucky to write some books with Andy, including a series of books for young kids called Diary of a Brilliant Kid: Top Secret Guide to Awesomeness. And he talks about how he's one of the guys that talks about things like you know how people talk about you've got 4,000 weeks in life, and it's just shy of 80 years. And you know, he says, I remember him saying to me one day, have you ever noticed that everywhere you go, Gav, you're there? I'm like, of course I have. What are you talking about? And he's like, no, think about it. Everywhere you go, you're there. And I'm like, no, I know that, dude. Like, I totally understand. And he's like, no, but think about it. And I was like, right. And it was like 3 o'clock the next morning. I'm waking up thinking, shit, I'm stuck with me. I'm stuck with me for... And he talks about it in his books, and you know, that's one of his things. And I remember him telling me this, and I'm like, yeah, if I'm going to be stuck with me, then I need to be realistic and accepting of who I am. And yeah, I need to try hard, and I need to, you know, but I want to be stuck with a me that I'm genuinely really proud of, that's got something about him, a bit of energy, a bit of passion, but it has to be real. And people always talk about my passion and my energy. And I mean, I use my anxiety and my nerves for good, because I mean, my whole career is shitting myself, you know, every day. You know, I was up in front of a big crowd yesterday. I was up today. I'm through in the west coast of Scotland tomorrow, up in front of a big organisation. And I know I'll wake up early and I'll shit myself all the way through in the car, but I'll get up there and be amazing. And I think, you know, the version of me that I want people to see needs to be real. It needs to be real, but I also know that I have to work really hard. Like somebody said to me recently, you're one of them happy clappy types. No, I'm not. I have to work really hard to be positive. I have to work really, really hard to see the opportunities and the possibilities. You know, it's like the world of positive psychology. You know, they talk about people who flourish and how they have this ability to, they experience more positive emotions, positive affect emotions. They show a greater sense of gratitude. It's not, you know, you have to work at that. So I have to work really, really hard to be grateful and to see the positives and experience these positive affect emotions. I have to write stuff down. You know, most nights I do a 3-word happy story. It's such a simple little technique for everybody that's on here. Literally write a 3-word happy story every night. And it's amazing what you come up with in 3 words. Now, my 3 words became 10 words, which became 100 words, which became 60,000 words one day, and it got published. And now I've got 6 books, and my 3-word happy stories keep growing. But you have to work at it to be content, to be fulfilled, to be positive, to have less stress in your life. It takes effort, which can be difficult. But surround yourself with other people who are trying really hard, and you'll find some cool shit.
Couldn't agree more.
I've got no idea what I just said for the last 5 minutes, by the way, but hopefully it made sense.
You're all good. It sounded good. It was entertaining. No, I completely agree. And I will add to that. I've spoke about this before, but I also try really hard at positivity. It's not something that comes natural. The whole reason I got into this, the whole reason I do this isn't because I woke up, you know, was born a happy, clappy individual. It's because I struggled and I found it challenging, and I realized like I don't want to, be struggling all the time. I want to learn how to work at it. And I recognize that working on your mindset is like working on your body. You need to be doing something consistently. You can't just expect to feel confident or happy or positive all the time. You've got to be doing things to help you, and again, you're still not going to be perfect, and that's okay too. Now, most of you that listen to this show every week are also already members of our incredible membership, so you don't need me to tell you how amazing that it is. If you're not a member, I'm not going to list everything that you get because it's completely free to join anyway. So all I would say is click the link in our show notes, head on over, start your membership, and you will find out for yourself. But simply put, the membership is this. It is there to give you the guidance, the support, the accountability, the community, and the information that is there if you actually want to start to become a person who achieves what it is you say you want to achieve. If you want to become that high performance action taker, that person that is a go-getter, that has got the support to start making change in every single area of your life, that's what the membership does. That is what we are there to do. And I can tell you now that if you take action, if you sign up, and if you commit to consistently engaging with the membership, I can almost 100% guarantee you that it will positively impact every single area of your life. But I can't do that for you. You are the missing link. You need to click that link. You need to sign up. You need to join us, and you need to get involved. If you do, the results will come. The question is, will you do it? I don't know, but I really hope so. And if you do, I'll be excited to welcome you into the community. Guys, I've got a question to ask. If you are listening to this podcast right now and you haven't yet purchased a ticket for our live in-person event, what on earth are you doing? You need to stop listening. You need to go purchase your ticket, and you need to make your way to Bradford on Saturday, the 6th of January, to get yourself in the room. No excuses. I don't care if it's your day of your wedding. Cancel your wedding. You can postpone it. It's not as important as this. If you were at the first event that we did in Manchester, you will know just how powerful it is to get into a room full of people who are like-minded, to engage in the great content, to meet the guest speakers, and to bloody well meet me. Like, what more do you need? All jokes aside, I seriously think out of everything I've ever done, putting on these events is the thing I enjoy the most. I think it is the most powerful and impactful, and it has the potential to genuinely change your life. It has the potential to help you connect with some great people that could become lifelong friends. There's just so many benefits. What I've done is I've put the link to get tickets in the show notes of this episode. So just head over there if you want to get a ticket. There's going to be some great speakers. We're also going to be doing some group breath work. We're going to be doing some group coaching where I'll be there coaching you guys on the day. We'll be talking about some stuff that's genuinely going to get you thinking about what you want out of your life and what you need to be doing to take the steps to make those changes. You're also going to be invited to do some cold water therapy. It's not compulsory. There's just going to be the opportunity if you want to do it. I certainly will be doing it. So if you want to get in an ice bath with me, that will be available to you. We're also going to be having some really healthy, nutritious foods available to eat on the day. It's just going to be such a positive day. The way that I'm sort of marketing it is like a little mini retreat in Bradford. Who knew? Who knew you could do that in winter in Bradford? It's happening, like I say, on the Saturday the 6th. It's going to be in the day, and I would love to see you there. Click the link to get your ticket. Drop me a message. You can either email me at successschoolgroup@gmail.com or DM me on the various social media handles if you've any questions. But do get your tickets fast, because I'm not just saying this is a marketing thing. I am very, very pleased to see they are selling very, very quickly. So don't procrastinate. Take action, and I'll see you there. What about the subject of playfulness? What's your advice to adults when it comes to playfulness?
Well, my advice is go play. Now, I am a huge advocate of play and playfulness. I write about it. I talk about it. I support play charities. The scientific breakdown of playfulness is imagination, creativity, and innovation. Now, without those three things, the world would be seriously shit. We'd have no sport. We'd have no entertainment. You wouldn't be able to go to the theatre. You wouldn't be able to read books. You wouldn't be able to listen to music. You wouldn't be able to go on dates. You wouldn't be able to socialise with your friends. You wouldn't be able to try amazing foods. You wouldn't have the technology that you have. Play is like oxygen. It's all around you. You just don't notice it until it's gone. And if you know that it's gone, then you need to go get it back. And I'm talking proper play here, Matt. I'm talking get your mates together and have a giant game of tag. Get your mates together and have a great big game of hide and seek. Get a frisbee, go down the park, dive onto your bed, roll yourself up, tell your family you're a sausage roll. I don't care if that sounds ridiculous. Do you know the amount of people out there, adults, who used to think, I'm going to go and build a den in the garden, even when they were told, but it's going to rain in an hour. But see now, that example sums up the world. The amount of people out there who have made a shift from being the type of person that says, I'm going to go and build a den in the garden, to becoming the person that says, but it's going to rain in an hour. I think that just kind of sums up the whole world for me right now. Play is so important. Play taps into your mental health, your sense of wellness, your levels of cheer, your levels of joyfulness. And I think more workplaces out there would benefit from creating much, much more playful environments. There is a TED talk that everyone can watch of me at St Andrews University, where the theme was play. And there's 300 people in the room. And I say to the audience, we're going to play hide and seek right now. And the whole idea was, they won't do it because they're adults and there's nowhere to go because we're in a lecture theatre. And then I'll talk about why as adults we don't play enough and we need to play more. What actually happened, and you can watch it, you can see the fear on my face. They all started hiding. Everybody started diving under their chairs and throwing their jackets over their heads. And I could hear 300 seats going ping, 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 ping. And I'm like, oh shit, they're all... And I had to almost change my talk, mid-talk. And it's brilliant. It's even if I say so myself, it's a wonderful, wonderful TEDx moment. And you'll notice as well when you watch it that I'm wearing a cape during the whole thing now. That sounds really corny, but you have to wait till the very last line to see why the cape is even a thing. So I'm a huge fan of play and playfulness. They talk about how children learn best through play. It's a big, big secret in this world. But it's a scientific fact that adults also learn best through play.
I love that. And I guess what I take away from that almost is when we give ourselves permission, we've still got that inner child within us. It's just societal constraints and different masks and hats that we wear, tell us that we have to be an adult, whatever that means.
Well, this is it. We're not given the chance anymore. That was the thing I learned that day at the TEDx event, that if you give people the opportunity to play, it's amazing how many people will take it. But it shouldn't take a 4-year-old to come up with a frisbee or a ball and say, do you want to play? Yeah. So I'm on a wee bit of a mission to kind of make it the norm for adults to have fun and to play. I mean, we run workshops called things like putting the fun back in the staff room for teachers. I know it sounds really cheesy, but it's brilliant. We've got fun at work courses. We are qualified to deliver Lego Serious Play workshops. It's incredible what you can do with play and the emotions that it creates, the connections that it creates, the bridges that it builds, the relationships that it builds. I mean, it's just magic. It really is.
You also wrote in your book, Life Will See You Now, that society tells you to go out there, be yourself. And then I think you said something like, yeah, but not like that.
Yeah.
You want to just talk about that as well?
Yeah, well, society does. It says, yeah, you go and be yourself and do your thing. So you do, and then it goes, yeah, but not like that. Yeah. Not like that. And I think that is the society. And you're encouraged through school to, as a young kid, fulfill your dreams, think big. And then anybody that does just gets knocked down constantly. Or what you're doing, that's ridiculous. You're thinking too big. You're a daydreamer. You're this. You're that. You're the next thing. And get a proper job. And I think to carve one's path nowadays is tough. When I went to school, success was you go to university. That was it. Yeah. That was it. You go to university, that's how you become successful. You get a job, you get married, you buy a house. That's it. That was what was deemed as a success. There's a brilliant phrase that we use here in Scotland in Scottish schools. There's a campaign that runs every year called No Wrong Path. And I love the idea of no wrong path because nowadays there is no wrong path. It doesn't matter if you do college, university, a gap year, if you travel the world for 5 years, if you do volunteering, if you do an apprenticeship, I could keep going. It's all correct. It's all correct. And I released a book last year. My publishers had asked if I would be up for doing a book for teenagers. And that's a hard thing to do because you need to write a book that a teenager will look at and go, I might read that. And write a book that parents will look at and go, that's maybe right for my teenager. And it's hard to get both right because it's the parents that'll buy it. But there's a bit in there where I've talked about this no wrong path thing. And I did a thing that maybe other people would be up for trying, where I actually mapped out my entire journey from my first ever part-time job at 13 years of age of working the dodgems on Troon Beach in Ayrshire on the west coast of Scotland for £1 an hour. I thought I'd made it at that point. And I actually thanks Dominic, I actually mapped out every single step of my journey when I then went into comedy, when I went into teaching, when I worked for Next, when I sold kitchens, when I pulled pints. Became a primary teacher, best-selling author. I went through it all. It's amazing. The journey that you go on. Yeah. I'm now 44. I'm still on a journey. I still don't know what's next. I'm still making it up. I'm still not an expert. And anyone that tells you they are talking shit.
Lying bastards. Yeah, and I also think
apart from doctors and surgeons, I hope they're experts.
I hope so. Christ.
And pilots.
Then we have got a whole different thing to worry about. But what I love is I'm sure on what you're sort of saying there is every single thing gave you an experience, gave you a lesson, you met new people doing it. And that's why in a way there is no wrong path. There's just your journey and your experience and making the best of that and seeing the best in that. All right. What I want to do just quickly, if we can, before we head over to the members Q&A, is just ask you a few of the general life questions that I tend to ask all our guests. So the first one is this: what is some of the best advice that you've ever received in your life and why?
I can tell you two things straight away. One, your energy will introduce you before you do. That blew my mind at 18 years of age. In other words, how you walk in the door matters. That I got given that as a trainee teacher, how the teacher turns up. The kids will know before you even open your mouth what kind of mood you're in. It made me think of great teachers and awful teachers. So that's one. Your energy will always introduce you before you do. And the other best bit of advice I could possibly have ever heard and will ever give is do less, be more. That'll mean different things to different people, but do less, be more. That is just beautiful.
All right. On the flip side, what is some of the worst advice you've received and why? And I imagine some of it might have been potentially the personal development shit, because there's a lot of bad advice we were talking about before we were filming. But what springs to mind some of the worst advice and why?
Oh man,
too many.
I mean, I'm 20 years in business, and there has been so many shit moments that have been caused by other people. I think. Oh man, I don't know. That's a tough one because actually I can't think of one. A really, really, really shit piece of advice, other than maybe some financial opportunities that came along.
Yeah,
which we'll maybe not discuss.
We won't talk about that. Yeah, okay. I know you were speaking about before camera the idea of the hustle stuff. Hustle hard, and there's a lot.
Oh well, there's one then, right? Yeah, get up at 5 o'clock every morning and go to the gym and work for 24 hours solid until you're a billionaire. Nah, sorry, it's not how it works.
Yeah, there's usually a few breakdowns, and then you demotivated, and then you hate life.
So, you could probably link it to the last thing I said, and that's do less, be more.
Yeah.
I was doing more and being less.
And I completely get what you mean, because I exactly the same. And I think that's really, really good advice. If anyone's listening and they've not heard what was said, listen again till you really hear it, because we can just be busy being busy and constantly. I think it links in again, Gavin, to what you were saying about this thing of always needing to be more and have more and do more. For what? Why are you doing it?
There's a brilliant quote from Lord of the Rings of all things. Bilbo Baggins said, "I feel thin, sort of stretched, like butter scraped over too much bread." In 2018, I learned that one knob of butter cannot cover a whole loaf. It only goes so far. I basically learned that I only go so far. Unfortunately, I've had a few lessons in the last few years that I only go so far. But everyone on here right now, you also only go so far. You have to look after you. Matt, you said something about being busy. I think we live in a time where busyness is now being mistaken for doing a good job. Oh, they're really busy, I'll leave them to it. I'm sorry, being busy and doing a great thing in the world do not correlate in the slightest.
Agreed. And interestingly, I took away that it meant I was one knob. That's what I got from the Bilbo Baggins thing. I'm one knob. I'm joking. All right. Final one before we head into the Q&A is this podcast is Success School. And I kind of the premise is that a lot of traditional education maybe didn't go deep on the most important things that make us successful, e.g., fulfilled, i.e., really talking about mental health and mindset, talking about physical health and nutrition, talking about financial health. For me, they're three of the most important subjects that none of us are really taught particularly well, I don't think, in traditional education. So based on that concept, if you reflect on what you've learned about life away from traditional education, if you were to give people three truths, three pieces of information that you believe if they stick to these three things, these are going to be three life lessons to live by that will enable them to live a happy, healthy, successful, fulfilling life. What would you say are kind of the three biggest truths you'd share?
That family come first always. That's not always an easy one, but I think that's been a big thing for me, is that family comes before anything, absolutely anything. I think something I was talking about at an event recently. It ties in with the mindset stuff about this idea of, are you trying to be the best in the world, in your team, in your organization, in your school, or are you trying to be the best for your team and your organization? Now, it's one tiny little subtle shift away from into for within your thinking, but actually the more you think about it, it's neither tiny nor subtle whatsoever. And I think that would be one of my things is, a life lesson was, again, you touched on earlier, Matt, it's not about me. It's trying to be the best for is so much more important than trying to be the best in. And it changes your thinking, it changes your language, it changes that thing that you give off. It changes the people around you, the types of people you socialize with and interact with and form relationships with. So I think, I don't know if that's an answer to your question or not, but that's been a big life lesson for me. That's an entire rewiring of the brain, though, because again, to go back to the point from earlier, society teaches us, be the best in this, be the best at that. Nobody tells you to be the best for something.
It stops it being about competition, doesn't it? And it stops it being about comparison, and it's more about, I guess, collaboration, wholeness,
much more togetherness, inclusivity. And I think the last thing, it's very simple for me, and it's a bit of a life rule, and that is, don't be a dick. Just don't be a dick. It's the New Zealand All Blacks, the rugby team. They've got the rule of no dickheads allowed, and it should be the number one rule in every workplace. You imagine, in fact, it should be the first question at interview: are you a dick? You know, because dickheads know they're dickheads. Hook them up to a lie detector test. Are you a dickhead? No. Right, you're out. You don't get to work here because this is only for lovely people. So I think family come first, be the best for, and basically don't be a dick. Kindness matters.
Gavin, this has been brilliant. I just want to say thank you so much for your time. And I really appreciate somebody who is in the motivational speaking space that is so real and relatable, because I think we need more of that. I do believe there's a shift happening where we're moving away from all these billionaire dicks that are all like, look at me, look at my Lamborghini, my Rolex watch and my house, my mansion, whatever. And we're starting to get more people like yourself. And it's great to see you doing the work that you're doing. So thank you for that. If anybody has just heard about you for the first time through this podcast and they now want to follow you and get more of your content, get your books, that kind of thing, would you just let people know where can they find you?
Of course. So I am on all your usual platforms, X or Twitter. I still can't call it X, I'm sorry. Just, you can see my name there. It's a bit of a funny spelling, my surname. All my handles are just Gavin Oattes, apart from Instagram, which is Gav Oattes, because somebody stole my account and I couldn't get it back.
I couldn't find you on Instagram. I looked for you. You are on there then.
Gav Oattes. Just Gav Oattes. Everything else is Gavin Oattes, with 2 T's and an E, but Instagram is Gav Oattes. Books. I'd love you to go to independent bookstores and order my books if they don't have them, but in all honesty, you're going to get them much, much cheaper on Amazon. You just are. As much as I don't like the big giant organizations, It is what it is, and they're all on there. There's the 2 books for young kids. There's 1 for teenagers, and there's 3 for the grown-ups as well. If you follow my social media, you'll also find on my Twitter page, you'll find a sign up for a thing called Belly Fire. I'm a great believer that there's no point in having a belly if there's no fire in it. So it's a fortnightly thing that I put out. It takes you about 5 or 6 minutes to read. And then there's maybe a wee 2-3 minute YouTube video that you can watch as well. And if you go onto YouTube and search up my belly fire stuff, you'll find a whole bunch of videos on there as well.
And that TEDx talk as well. We need to all watch that.
Yeah. There's a couple of TEDx talks, but the St Andrews Uni one where I'm wearing a cape is my favourite. You don't need to watch the other one. Well, the Clackmannanshire one's quite good. What I will say is the one where I play hide and seek. I have a lot of hair.
It's worth watching for that.
And it is proper Britpop hair. It was only a few years ago, but I've only not long started shaving my head, so yeah.
Love it. Gavin, absolutely brilliant. Final question before we hand over to the members Q&A. What is your personal definition of success?
It's something I've already touched on, and it's contentment and fulfillment. That is it. Knowing that I'm not being a dick and hurting anyone, and just being content with where I'm at and who I have in my life. I have a beautiful, beautiful family. My wife Ali is amazing. My son Cian and my daughter Ellis are just everything. And I just want to eat nice food and hang out with my family.
Oh, man, beautiful. Gavin, thank you so much. Okay, so I know I said I wasn't going to bang on about everything that's inside the membership, and that's true. I didn't lie to you. I'm not going to tell you everything because it's free to join. Go over there, find out for yourself. But one thing I do want to make sure you're aware of is pretty much almost every guest that you listen to on this podcast also agrees to do a further around about 30 minutes worth of the chat that is only available to the members only. Because what we do is we invite our members to listen to a lot of these podcasts being recorded live. And then once we've finished, they stay on the live on Zoom where they can actually ask questions to the guest speaker and get more personalized, bespoke answers. Now, if you want to be on the upcoming episodes, if you want to meet these guests and put your question to them, and if you also want to right now start to listen to all the past few years worth of these conversations, head on over to the link in the show notes, start your free trial today, and just to let you know as well, it's less than £5 a week after your free trial ends. So it's not going to cost you a lot of money, even if you want to stay long term. Click that link, start your trial, go listen to the content, get your invite to come and join us on all future podcast recordings, and I look forward to seeing you in our amazing, incredible community of people in the membership area. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode today, and I'll see you next time.